Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel, and today we've got a brand new set of speaking questions. So let's get started. What was your favorite animal as a child? So when I was a child, I was obsessed with cats. I even thought that when I would grow up, I'd grow up to be a cat. Of course, that's not possible, but I just loved cats. And anytime I'd see a cat, I'd run up behind it and try and, get close to it. But of course, cats always run away. On the other hand, I was very afraid of dogs, especially because a couple times twice or thrice maybe I was running and a dog would end up running after me. It wouldn't like harm me or anything, but yeah, I did get afraid of dogs. But I overcame that relatively quickly. But cats were definitely number one. I really wanted a pet cat, and anytime I could touch a cat or get close to one, I'd never pass up the opportunity. Do people in your country keep pets? So, when I was a child, it was not at all popular, but nowadays it's super popular. Almost every family has some kind of pet, if it's a fish or a bunch of fishes, or a cat or a dog, or rabbits or hamsters or something like that. It's very common nowadays. Um, but most people will still just have, like a lot of people, they don't really want a typical pet, so they'll just get, like a small aquarium or something. Some people even have birds. But then a lot of people will still choose to have like a dog, the traditional type of pet. So overall, I mean, like for example, not just in the cities, even like, on farms in rural areas, people have like they have a lot more animals, of course. They might not be considered like pets in the traditional sense of like this cute thing that lives inside your home and you cuddle with it and whatever, but they have, they have their own versions of pets, so to say. What kind of pet would you not like to have? So, when I think of like a pet, I think of, okay, here's this animal that interacts with me, that is, bonded to me, that I can like touch and, cuddle and, that kind of stuff. So, I would just hate to have like something like a, bunch of fish or birds or something. I mean, yeah, some birds can definitely be very interactive and smart, but generally, the less interactive an animal is, the less likely I want that as a pet. I honestly, I just find it boring. I find it boring to have like fish or whatever. You can't hug a fish, you can't caress a fish. It just makes no sense. And even birds, like all they do is make noise. Except if you have like one parrot or something, and they can definitely be very smart. I've seen videos on YouTube, but I still wouldn't like, it's such a small, tiny, delicate thing, I'd like, instead a dog or a cat, something I can really, uh, get together with and, bond and have like an actual type of relationship. Not like something so small and fragile like a fish or a bird or even a hamster. Is environmental protection important? Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. Why would anyone ever say no, it's not important? Of course, it's important, not just for us, but all kinds of life on the planet, right? It's a shame that this, the destruction and the protection of the environment depends entirely on human beings, even though there's other life forms, right? And the earth is as much their right as it is ours. I truly don't think that human lives are, more valuable, more precious than animal lives. I mean, if you ask an animal, I'm sure he'd, say, I'd like to live. I'd like to have, a healthy habitat. So, yeah, it's like I said, it's, of course, it's important. There's no other possible correct, response, because if you don't protect the environment you have, okay, you will die in like 50 years, 100 years, whatever. But what about your children, grandchildren? What kind of planet are they going to inherit? Is it fair, to leave them behind in a world that is just, going to hell in a handbasket, essentially? And, it's no longer this far off reality. We see that, okay, the climate isn't the same anymore and there's all these weird changes, and so we are actively grappling with that problem now. It's up to us if we fix the problem or, let it get worse than it currently is. Okay, now we'll go on to part two. Describe a performance you enjoyed watching. You should say what the performance was, when and where you watched the performance, who was performing, and explain why you enjoyed the performance. So this one, oh, by the way, performance can be any kind of performance. It can be a theater piece, it can be an opera, it can be a play, an act, anything at all. Could even be a concert or something. So, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something you watched live in person. It can even be a recording. You watch it on YouTube, or you watched a live stream, or you actually went there in person. Doesn't matter. It can be any of these. So, a couple years ago, I think this was in, I don't remember, it was a few years ago. I came across this, so the Met Opera, they have a website, and for some time, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to broadcast all these streams of operas that they've played. And so there's this book that I had read a couple years ago. It was called The Sorrows of Young Werther, and it's a very good book. I definitely recommend reading it if you're into, old literature, very raw and passionate literature. But anyway, so there's an opera based off The Sorrows of Young Werther. You know what's funny is the book is in German, the opera is in French, which is very cool. So, of course, I don't really speak French. I mean, I know a couple things here and there, but of course, you have, subtitles and stuff like that. So, anyway, this performance is, the thing with opera is, well, everyone's got their favorite performers, right? And you can have an opera played by all kinds of people, but what I personally find is the one that I watched was, I think, from 2004 or 2007. I think it was filmed in Paris. So again, I don't know the exact date, but I do know that they had, I think, Sophie Kochman as, I forgot her name, Charlotte. I think that's the character's name. And you had Jonas Kaufman as Werther, and they really, and you also have, oh, I forgot her name, but she is relatively new. She's actually gaining a lot of popularity these days. I forgot her name. I think she's a Cuban or something like that. I hope I'm not wrong about that, but she's a Cuban opera singer. I think Lisette Oropesa. I think that's the name. Don't quote me on that though. But yeah, so she also played her part really well. I think that this is the perfect casting. Of course, they do play Werther with, a separate different cast, but it's not the same. And it's not just the casting that's important. It's also the environment, the stage, the makeup, the costumes, everything is really important. And so for me, that casting will always be definitive Werther. There's nothing that comes close to that, and you can in fact still watch it online. There's bits and pieces on YouTube, but there's also a bunch of other places where you can practically watch the entire opera, and you don't have to pay anything. It's free. But of course, it doesn't compare to watching in person. So that one, I think, what really sets them apart is the intensity of performance. That is real art, because it's not just about singing. As you know, opera singing is very different to just normal, pop music singing. For one, there's no mics. You really have to have a powerful voice, not just powerful, but expressive, emotive. And that's one thing, but when you are an opera performer, you also need to be able to emote. So it's both acting and singing. Although some people, they don't really place a lot of importance on acting, but it's supposed to be something you not just hear, but you see it performed. And so this specific cast, especially Jonas Kaufman, they've really become their characters. So yeah, that is something I definitely recommend. Of course, it's a tearjerker, but it's great. I think it really highlights just how much of it's a very difficult art form to master, right? Of course, there's lots of great operas one can see, but this one is, a favorite of mine. Okay, let's go on to part three. Why do fewer people watch live performances these days? So, well, I mean, there can be a lot of reasons. I think in general, though, people, you have, for example, let's take movies, right? So the thing is, with a movie, you have a schedule where you can decide when you want to watch the movie. There's lots of options, but live performances, generally what I see is that they're not played that frequently, of course, because it's live, right? A movie can be played 5 times a day, but a live performance maybe once a day, at most twice a day, maybe, but that's a big, if. So that's, there's this lack of choices, lack of flexibility. That's one thing. And also, people, I don't think, appreciate live art anymore, like whether it's theater, opera, concert. Concerts are still relatively popular, but not as popular as they used to be like 20 years ago. And so, unless of course you talk about the big stars, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, etc. But yeah, it's just like taking time out from your schedule, because like I said, live performances, you don't have that kind of flexibility, right? It's not like a movie theater. You decide when you're free. Do you want to go at 8 a.m.? Do you want to go at 10 p.m.? Do you want to go on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever? So you have a lot more flexibility with recorded performance, especially now that you've got everything on your phone, tablet, computer. There's less and less of an incentive for people to go out there, commute, go at a fixed time, and all of that. So I think all of these causes contribute to the lack of popularity that live acts suffer from. You think traditional performances are important? Well, of course they are. In a way, having, for example, traditional dance forms or music forms, that are, you have specific instruments that are popular in certain countries. And so, of course, they're not as popular. Like, let's say you've got there's this Japanese instrument. I don't recall the name. It's kind of like a mandolin or a banjo. I think it's called the shinkai. No, that's not it, but it's something. Anyway, of course, it's not very popular. There's very few people that even make the instrument and very few people that play the instrument, but it's an important part of their culture. And so being able to preserve that also means that you're able to preserve culture, right? Because that's what makes, every culture, every country, every region unique. And so we are at risk of losing that uniqueness, that different flavor that every place has if traditional performances or traditional art um, isn't respected, isn't given the financial support that it deserves. Because that's one of the things, the arts in general, they do require patronage. So, whether it's from wealthy benefactors, whether it's from the government, but you do need to be able to support art because it's not exactly a very profitable venture. It's not a business or something generally that generates a lot of revenue and a lot of profit. So there does need to be, I think governments across the world do need to invest in culture, invest in ensuring that such productions are produced, are played out, so that people have, that link to their culture, to these aspects of their culture. What do you think is the difference between watching a live performance and watching it on TV? So, first of all, if you're part of an audience, you definitely get this raw feeling. You can feel the energy of the audience, right? Especially if it's like a concert or something, right? Now, of course, it's very convenient to be at home and watch something on your television. There's no investment required, and often it's also free. So it's got comfort right there. But then, if you really want to live an experience, then you need to go out. Then you need to be there, in the in a hall, or you attend a concert or something, because you get to share that feeling with all these other people, right? You're watching something very moving, or you're listening to music that's being played live for you, right? So that's special. Like a performance on TV, you don't know if it's recorded or if it's, whether you're talking about live streaming or whether it's just recorded, something that's played, that's different. But in being able to live out this experience, that is something very special. And you don't get the same feeling from watching something on TV. Let's say, for example, even if it's like a sports match or something, right? Seeing it happen in front of your eyes, being so close to the action, that definitely invokes a different set of feelings compared to just seeing something on a screen. I'd go so far as to say seeing something on a screen, it doesn't really feel real. It feels a little bit, I don't know, artificial, or there's just that veneer that, oh, that's not really real. But when you go out there, you experience it, and that's an entirely different world. How do you think watching a dance performance or a stage play influences children? I think first of all, it kind of pulls them towards the arts. It rouses this interest in them that, oh, that is a very cool thing, or that's interesting, or that's fun, I'd like to try that. It's a good way to introduce children to art and art forms, see if they have any interest in something like that and if they'd like to try it out. Because the thing is, a lot of people dismiss these things, but intelligence is tied to creativity. Intelligence is just problem solving. Creativity is also problem solving. So giving your child an outlet for such things to be creative helps them to solve problems, helps them to come up with different ways of doing things. It also helps generally, with things like, especially for children, motor control, body control, all of that. So that also helps them in that way. And generally, just an appreciation for the finer things in life, beauty, art, and all of this. It helps to kind of refine their taste as well. You just consume, for example, some reality TV show or something on YouTube is whatever. It's like, okay, well, it's kind of like mindless entertainment, right? You watch the Kardashians or whatever. It's mindless entertainment. But if you watch a dance performance, if you watch a theater play or something, you get to learn cultural aspects, yes, but you also get to live out, like you have the artist in front of you and they're doing something, they're practicing their art, they're showcasing what a trained human being can do, right? They're actually creating something of real value. It's not just, mindless garbage, I would say, for most of TV that you see nowadays. So, that might sound a bit snobbish, okay, but it's the fact. It's a fact. It's true, isn't it? So, yeah. So that was all for today. If you've got any feedback, comments, anything at all, just leave it down below. I'd love to hear from you and let me know if there's something I can do to make these videos more useful, or if you'd like me to do something else, that's also welcome. And don't forget to click on the like button, share the videos with people that you think will find them helpful. Oh, and by the way, we have a lot of videos, a lot of content, so check out all the playlists that we have. And until then, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.